right. My dear fellow listeners, good evening once again and welcome to another edition of Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat. Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat is a Canadian initiative with a global impact. There are a few different ways to listen to us. You can listen to us on the regular dial, that's the radio, 102.7 CKMS FM. You can listen to us on digital cable as well, for those of you who have the Rogers digital box. And of course, we are live streaming our Chit Chat, so do take the opportunity to share our page. We ask you to stay with us if you like to learn a thing or two. If you're looking for an opportunity to vent out negativity, this is not for you. Tonight, we are joined by Annanmie Paul. I hope I get the name correctly there. Annamie, thank you so much. Who is joining us tonight. She's one of the 10 candidates actually running for the leadership race for the Green Party of Canada. So we're going to get right into it. We do have a few core questions for her. We'll take the opportunity to get to know her as a person, as an individual, all of that. But of course, we want to give her the opportunity to introduce, herself to us. So take it away, introduce yourself to us. Let us know a little bit about your academic background and perhaps a little bit of an employment piece as well too. And then we're going to get right into the core pieces, if that's okay with you.
Great, with pleasure. Very nice to be here, and thank you so much for hosting me this evening. My name is Annanmie Paul, and I'm a candidate for the leadership of the Green Party of Canada. The Green Party has had the same leader for about 14 years, and so now we are having a leadership race. I'm one of 10 candidates that has presented themselves for the leadership. I ran in the last election in Toronto, in the riding of Toronto Centre. I ran against several candidates, but the incumbent was Bill Morneau, the finance minister. I also, until I stepped down to run for the leadership, I was the international affairs critic for the Green Party of Canada. In terms of my background, I was born and raised in Toronto. My family is from the Caribbean, from very small islands, Dominica and Nevis. And they came here as immigrants in I believe, the late 60s. My mother was an elementary school teacher and my grandmother was a nurse. I went to university in Ottawa. I got my law degree from the Faculty of Common Law at the University of Ottawa. And then after a little bit of work life, I went back to school and obtained my master's degree in public affairs from Princeton University. And I have worked domestically on working to increase the representation of underrepresented groups in Canadian politics. I founded an institute in Toronto that was a national institute focused on that issue. And then internationally, I worked primarily in public diplomacy and international relations. And so I'm very proud to be running for the Green Party. And I'm hoping that we succeed during the race in attracting new members, particularly from diverse groups, to the Green Party. And, we have a very important role to play, I think, in this next chapter of life in Canada, particularly because we are facing so many unprecedented challenges. And I think we need all of the best minds and ideas working on those. And I believe some of them are in the Green Party.
What a good introduction there. That's awesome. Everything was all making sense as you were introducing yourself, because I did read up a little bit on you as well, too, of course, knowing that we were going to have you on here as a guest and all of that. So we're going to get right into it. At the end of it, if we have time, we'll probably get to know you more in terms of asking you a question, asking you what's your favorite color, what's your favorite food, and so on. But for now, let's start off with the core pieces, the things that the people want to hear from you.
Okay.
Kind of thing. So my first question to you, yeah, all right. So my first question to you is, what are the most important challenges facing our country, and how do you propose to address them?
Excellent question. We have many challenges all at once that are facing our country. Even before the pandemic, we were dealing with the climate emergency, which we have not just in government, but we also have Canadians that agree that is one of the most important challenges that we face. And so we already had that. We also had many people preoccupied by affordability in Canada, by the holes that we had in our social safety net. We have people concerned about the future of work. They're worried about jobs being replaced by automation, by artificial intelligence. And so we had many challenges, and then we had the pandemic, and the pandemic changed everything. It's affected our economy. It's changed the way that we live. We've had many people, of course, who have died, and it's exposed many of the weaknesses in our system. So, you know, we have these tremendous challenges that we're facing, and I'm hoping that we will use some of the things that we've learned from this moment in order to move towards a better and brighter future and have a real just recovery. We need to make sure we keep the cooperation going between the levels of government, especially. A big part of what has happened is that they have put aside their differences. Can you imagine? We never thought it was possible, right?
That's right,
But
exactly.
they put aside their partisanship, their differences, and they cooperated together, and people in Canada were better because they did that. And so I think we all want to see that continue. And we also want to see the money, the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to billions that are going to be spent in the next couple of years. We want to make sure it's being invested in the things that matter and dealing with some of those challenges.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that response. Definitely appreciate that. So my next core question for you is, what will you do over the long term to ensure healthcare access for all Canadians?
That is an excellent question, and one that particularly, is particularly important to me. It was very important to me even before I ran, but it's become very personally important because my father passed away just about a month ago, and he passed away in a long-term care home. He was not receiving, like many seniors we have discovered, he was one senior that was not receiving the level of healthcare that he deserved. And so one of the main things that I believe that we can do and learn from the crisis is that we need to respect people at every stage of life. We need to make sure that people can live in dignity at every stage of life. And we have specifically recommended as part of our policies that long-term care be brought beneath the Canada Health Act. And so that whether you're a senior or whether you're a young person, whatever stage you are at life, you have a guarantee of a basic care that allows you to live in dignity.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you so much. And our condolences, by the way, to you.
Thank you.
Especially this challenging time and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah. So next question for you is, what will you do to support a vibrant economy throughout Canada?
Excellent question. And again, I touched on that before.
Yeah.
These are the big questions. You're asking the very big questions of the day. These are the things that we really should be thinking. We really should be thinking about. We have this unprecedented investment that we've already begun to make and will be making for many years to come, not just in Canada, but around the world. And the question really is how to spend it the best to make sure that we are stronger, and also so that the worst impacts of this moment are minimized. And so, what I would like to see and what the Green Party has been talking about is a green recovery. And this is something also that the European Union has been talking about. They've already adopted plans for a green recovery. What we want to do is use this money to invest in the technology and the jobs of the future. And so when you're investing hundreds of billions of dollars, that's the moment to be building big infrastructure that only governments can build, to be investing in the training that will allow people to transition out of jobs that don't have much of a future into jobs that do. And so that's really what I want to see. I want to see a coast to coast to coast electricity grid. I want to see electric car charging stations across the country. I want to see us investing in rural public transportation. I want to see us investing in jobs for those in the oil sector that whose jobs may be gone for good, so that they have a future. So making those investments in a green recovery, that's the key.
All right, that's fair enough. And speaking of jobs, and this is my favorite question actually, because I work in employment and I was like this line of work. So how will you work to increase job opportunities for all Canadians?
Excellent again. And one of the things that we can seize from this moment, as I said, is really creating the jobs of the future. You know, we still are not too late. We and the world is undergoing a major transition and transformation away from resource-based economies, away from fossil fuel economies, and into renewables. And Canada has the opportunity still to be right at the cutting edge of that. And it is estimated that far more jobs are created for every dollar invested in renewable energies than are created in the oil and gas sector. We also need to make sure that that everyone has access to education. You know, the fees now, the tuition fees that post-secondary students pay, not just for university, but for apprenticeships, for college, they really are limiting their future, and many are choosing not even to go. And so, you know, we have to accept that to get a job and to be employable, you need some training after high school. You need some training, and the government should be making sure that they are making that as easy and accessible as possible.
All right. Thank you so much for that response. Next question for you. In building a vibrant Canadian economy, would you consider reforming tax policies, addressing income inequality, or something else?
Absolutely. You know, there are many things that we need to do in order to address inequality. You know, we have a lot of people working in precarious jobs. You know, anyone who's working full time should be able to meet their needs by working full time. We have a big affordability issue in relation to housing, and so a larger and larger portion of people's budgets are going just to meet what is a basic need. Housing is a basic need. You know, and we do have a tax system where much of the burden is placed on middle class and lower income Canadians as opposed to the wealthiest. And so, you know, during the last election, the Green Party proposed increase, and not just individuals, but let's keep in mind that the very large technology firms who make hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars, they do not pay their fair share of taxes. In many cases, they don't pay any taxes. The corporate tax rate was reduced back in the early 2000s, and it still has not returned to those levels. And we are at the very low end of countries, of wealthy countries, in terms of what we tax corporations. So we need to make sure that we're all paying equally for the services we all benefit from. And in our platform, we recommended a number of policies, including taxing the big technology companies and raising the corporate tax rate in order to make sure that we're not raising taxes on middle class and low income people.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, next question for you. This is also one of my favorites. What, if any, steps will you take to reform current immigration policies?
Excellent. You know, great questions. You know, we're a country of immigrants. And as I said, my family, we were immigrants. And, you know, these were in the days that you could come and then you could bring your family. I don't know if you brought any family to Canada, but one would come. That's the way it worked in the Caribbean. One would come and then the rest, you know, would come. You would sponsor all of your cousins and everyone to come to Canada. And so a lot of our immigration was family reunion. You know, we have a point system, which means that we are bringing in more and more qualified people. The people who come are very professional. They often have one, if not multiple degrees. And when they arrive, their skills are being underused. You know, they find it very hard to break into their professions. In many cases, they don't recover their profession at all, and it's a real waste. It's a waste to bring someone in because of the skills they have and then not give them any way to use them. And, you know, during the pandemic, we've seen that that's been a big loss because we have many doctors and many nurses that are qualified and they haven't been put to use because they don't have the accreditation that they need to do that. So that's one thing that we need to reform. We need to streamline it. We need to find the bottlenecks and open those up. We also need to, you know, work harder to even meet our immigration targets. We're not even meeting them. And then, you know, in terms of other groups that we don't think that much about, let's keep in mind migrant workers. We've seen over the course of the pandemic that those are essential services. These are things that we need that people in Canada either aren't willing to do or where there aren't enough Canadians to do. And so if those are essential services and those are labor shortages, then we should be giving those people a true access to permanent residency in the country, so that if they want to stay, they can stay, and so that they can work here under the same labor standards as any other Canadian.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next question, but I should remind people that, especially the ones who probably tune in, a little after and so on, you are listening to Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat. Keep in mind, there are a few different ways to listen to us. You can listen to us on the regular dial, that's the radio, 102.7 CKMS FM. You can listen to us on Rogers digital cable as well, for those of you who have the Rogers digital box. And of course, we are also live stream our Chit Chat, so do take the opportunity to share a page. Joining me tonight is one of the candidates, Annamie, one of 10 that is running for the leadership to be the next leader for the Green Party of Canada. And so it is a privilege actually to have her to share her perspective as to what it means to her, if she was to win it, and what are some of the things she's passionate about to really help move things forward. So this next question, is a little bit iffy here in a sense that it's not a huge issue here, but for me, the way I see it, one life is too many to lose, so to speak. And so what step, if any, should be taken to reduce gun violence here in Canada?
Again, another excellent question. And whereabouts are you, I should ask? Are you also in Toronto?
I'm in the region Waterloo, about an hour from.
That's right, Waterloo. That's
Waterloo,
right.
yeah.
Okay. So yes, I live in Toronto, and certainly we have been, and Toronto Centre in particular had some of the worst gun violence statistics in the country. And so this is something that we've been thinking about and talking about a lot. We have to recognize, certainly I will be one of the first to say that we do not need, as civilians, semi-automatic weapons. There's no reason for a civilian to be carrying a gun, I don't think, and certainly not a semi-automatic gun in a city. There is nothing to hunt in a city but people. And so cities that want to restrict or ban guns within their borders should be able to do that, keeping in mind that that is not the solution. That is not going to yield the results that I think some people are hoping for. Most of the guns that are used in the commission of crime are obtained illegally. And most of those guns are trafficked in from the United States. And so border protection is going to be a very big part of this, a beefed up border protection that can intercept some of those guns. And then again, going back to basics and talking about the things that prevent people from wanting to use a gun in the first place. And that comes back to things like education, access to opportunity, et cetera. And so it's really a combination of those things, but a gun ban on its own will not solve the problem. We have to go to the root causes of, that lead to criminal activity. Not all of it, but much of it.
For sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate you responding to that. I just thought I'd get, your perspective on that.
Yes.
For sure. It's not as bad as where we are in the region Waterloo here. I know Toronto is a bigger city and there are more there are more actions going on here. So, but it's nice to have a conversation along these lines. So next question for you is what measure, and I think you probably touched on this a little bit, but what measures would you put what measure would you support to reduce the effects of climate change on healthcare?
Well,
public healthcare.
Yes, healthcare is our health is very much affected by the climate. And again, that's something that we saw very much in Toronto Centre, for a number of reasons. When it's a hot day and you're in an area that is really just primarily concrete, this causes all kinds of health problems. The construction that we had in Toronto Centre and still have creates an enormous amount of dust, and which is also bad for your health. And then the congestion, the traffic congestion as well. And so the air quality can just be absolutely terrible, not just in Toronto, but in many places in Canada. We also know that the extreme weather events that are provoked by climate change also impact health. We know that pandemics are also extreme weather events that are provoked by climate change also impact us, and pandemics also are caused by changes in the natural environment and the release of pathogens outside of the into human environments. And so there are many intersections between health and climate change. And we've been talking about that in our campaign, and other candidates have been talking about that as well. We feel that it's very important for people in Canada to understand the day-to-day impacts that climate change is already having on their health. And biodiversity is another example. We really could go on, but all the things that are necessary for a healthy life, including mental health, are impacted when we don't take care of the climate. And as the climate becomes iller, we are going to become iller as well.
All right, thank you so much. The next one is a very interesting one. These are normal kind of conversation we have, whether that be during any sort of political conversation or not. So the question is, what kind of policies, if any, will you pursue to promote social and racial justice here in Canada? You're a lawyer, so
it's a question. It's a very timely question. It's very topical. People are talking about this and thinking a lot about it. I'm hoping that some of this talk will lead to action, because it's a question that is asked over and over and over again.
Correct.
Of Black people, of communities of color, of Indigenous peoples. What can we do and how can we improve this? And we keep giving the answers. We do the studies are done, the reports are done, the royal commissions are done, all of this is done. And then what is always missing is the action. And so concretely, some of the things that we can do, we can implement the recommendations of the report on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. We're still waiting for the action plan for that. We can implement the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We can implement the recommendations of the United Nations Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent, who came to Canada in 2017 and produced a very comprehensive report with a whole series of recommendations about improving racism and race relations in Canada. Those are very good places to start.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, I realize it's a heavy one. I realize that we can go on for a long time, but just a little bit of a highlight, and you highlight some really good pieces here which really leads me into a very interesting specific question here. And you can add to it if you so choose. And so, so the next question here is, what, if any, specific steps will you take to address inequalities facing women in particular in Canada here? I know you mentioned that in your answer there, but if you want to add more to it, it's a beautiful thing.
Yes, thank you. Well, no, really the same. We've had, there's certain things, the expression people say, oh, it's been studied to death. And it really is that way. We have very regular studies, even annual reports by various ombudspeople, various commissions, various civil society organizations, even multilateral organizations that study this issue, even just exclusively in the Canadian context. And so, it's really, you arrive at the point where you just say, just take what you already know. Let's start with that. Let's start with that and do those things. We still have a significant gap, pay wage gap between men and women. And so we still don't have equal pay for equal work. We still have barriers for women participating in the workplace because of childcare responsibilities, and not just childcare anymore, also because of care of parents, seniors as well. And so these are the kind of barriers that we've known about for a very long time. We still haven't addressed those. And so I would start with those. We can start, just at two examples, close the pay gap and provide proper childcare. And, already we've done something.
All right. No, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
All right. So I have two more core questions for you, and then will kind of really be more loosened up, and I'll kind of ask you, you know, a little more loosey question here, just to kind of get to know you more
Okay.
as a person. So it will be a lot of fun. So not to worry. You know, I think you may have touched on the importance of education while you were answering different, questions and so on. But specifically, what should the federal government do, if any, to provide an equitable, quality public education for all children, particularly from kindergarten to grade 12? And I know that the Canadian system here, the education is not as bad, but I hope that you will agree with me that there's always room for improvement, right?
Sure, absolutely. There is always room for improvement, but it is also, you're right, it's important to recognize that we have, not everywhere, and this is important, there are significant regional disparities in terms of education and education outcomes, and not just regional, but also disparities between various racial groups as well. And immigrants as well, there are groups that don't do as well, but in general, in Canada, the reading, writing, math, science outcomes as measured against other students internationally, we usually end up in often in the top 5 and almost always in the top 10 in the world. So that is something to be proud of and to build on. In terms of the system that I know best, which is the Ontario system, certainly we need to prioritize it. We need to make the investments. There's no better investment that we can make than into the education of our children. And so we have to make sure that we never fall behind. The jobs of the future are going to be based on a knowledge economy, more and more and more. And so the countries that have the best knowledge and have the best prepared workforce in terms of knowledge are going to be the ones that succeed. And so that's, we have to make sure that we're making the investments. And as I said, we have to make sure that every student who enters the public school system has an equal opportunity, an equal chance of succeeding, regardless of their socioeconomic situation.
All right. Thank you so much for that response. It's always nice to hear different people's perspective on that, for sure. And so my last core question for you is, what measures, I personally don't think we have anything major, but there's always room for improvement. What measure do you support to improve and secure elections and voting in our country, Canada, that is?
Yes, this is something and particularly in the Green Party, that we think about quite a lot. The Green Party has been one of our core values. We have a series of, we have 6 core values, and one of them is participatory democracy. And so we're always thinking about how can we make our democratic system better and more inclusive and have more people having a voice in it. And so we talk about democratic renewal all the time, and how can we change our system to reinforce that value. And so just recently, actually, I put out a policy statement about this. We talked about some of the elements that might be included in a democratic renewal. We want the national government and people across Canada to consider, and I'm not advocating for them in particular, but I think these are things that we've talked about enough that it's worth talking about nationally. About lowering the voting age, about mandatory voting, about proportional representation, and those are a few of the issues that we would like a citizens' assembly to consider, and our parliament to consider, and perhaps to put to the people in a referendum, because we know that some of those things in other countries have worked in terms of increasing cooperation, increasing collaboration, and bringing more diversity to politics, and also in encouraging people to vote. The voter turnout rates in countries who have adopted some of those measures are much higher than in Canada. Yeah. So there is actually a lot that we can do, and we have about half of young people who aren't voting. About 43 to 45% of people under 25 did not vote in the last election. And we have about a third of Canadians who are eligible to vote who do not vote. And so there is definitely work in progress that we can make. And, these are some of the tools, as I said, that have been successful in other places and could work here. If, they might work here, I think the thing is, let's talk about it and let's see what we think as Canadians. Let's see maybe what we want to experiment with.
Yes, the one thing I have to agree with you. I like the idea of the proportional piece there.
Yes,
I think every vote should count in a sense, and I think those things can encourage people to kind of come out and actually vote because they will see value.
definitely.
They will see value in it. Um,
Absolutely.
and
That is what has been seen. You know, the countries with proportional representation, almost without exception, have higher voter turnout than the countries who don't, for the reason you said.
yes, I mean, Guyana, where I was born and raised, they just had the
Mhm.
election in March. They're still trying to figure out who's the winner. But apart from that, three small parties came together, and they will be
There we
they are
go.
they are going to get a seat there. So I think those are all unique pieces, because it's nice to have representation from different angle, different people, and all that. And these are educated, smart people. It's just that they are in a small party, just new party, just starting out. But I like those kinds of pieces. So hopefully things can change here too. There's always that
Yes,
possibility.
there is always a possibility. There are countries who've adopted proportional
Yeah.
representation not that long ago, and they're seeing good results. So, you know, perhaps people in Canada will decide to keep the system that we have, but I think it's always good after a certain number of years or generations to have the conversation, to lay out the options. And I really trust Canadians to make a good decision. So I think that this is something worth talking about, you know, as a country.
For sure, for sure. So now
Mhm.
we are done with our core question there.
Great.
So that is a beautiful thing. I do have one or two fun questions for you, but why not take the opportunity to share information as to how people can reach out to you?
Okay.
Maybe let them remind them as to how they can vote, the deadline and all of those pieces.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, how can you reach out to me? First of all, you're very welcome, and we would very much love to have you be in touch with me and with the campaign. You can reach us online. Our email, or not our email, our website address is annamiepaul.ca. That is ANNAMIEPAUL.ca. And there you can find information about joining so that you can vote for me, about volunteering with our campaign, or about donating if you would like to support our campaign. You can also learn more about my policies. You can also read all of my articles, the press that I've received from different outlets, and get to know me a little bit better. You can also visit us online on social media. We have a Twitter account and Facebook and Instagram as well. And so you can contact us in any of those ways. And you know, we are running to elect a new leader. I'm running to make history. You know, we've never had a woman of color leading a federal political party before. So it would definitely be a Canadian first, and that's very exciting. Particularly, I think in this moment, where we're talking a lot about these issues. And you know, I would be excited to get to know anyone who would like to reach out to us.
All right. So there you have it, people. You have all information you need to reach out to our guests. Annamie, if you would like to have more information, anything of that kind, do check out the website. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it will be wise for people to make every effort to support this whole campaign thing here for you and for all the other candidates too. One of the things I want to mention though here is that I'm not sure what it is. I want to make it open here though, because I know people are watching and will be watching again. I've invited all 10 candidates to come on this show here. None of the male responded to us here. And so I'm not
Really?
sure. Yes, correct. So I'm not sure if some of them, and I'm saying it bluntly here, and that is fine. I'm not sure if some people think that they're entitled, that it's an easy ride for them and they're just gonna get it and things like that. But it goes to show that, you know, um, it doesn't work like that. Things have changed, and people cannot pick and choose because think about it. You are running for a leadership role where you'll be representing and potentially be the prime minister of Canada. So you'll
That's
be
right.
representing everybody. So this is not like, you'll be working with a specific demographic and so on. And
No.
so the fact that, and I cannot speculate, but people cannot pick and choose where to go, how they go on anything of that kind, right? You have to be able to make yourself, accessible to everybody. So I was not disappointed. I wasn't surprised at all because I know people have different strategy when they're running for election and so on.
Mhm.
But that if whatever strategy they're using is not a good one, because you must be, because if you cannot respond to me and us, then
Yeah.
how can we trust you guys to be a leader for the Green Party or for a party, and then potentially become the next prime minister for Canada? Like, are we going to find you? Probably, most likely not, right? So I just thought I'd mention that. So ideally, and I'm not advocating for anybody here, but I just thought I'd make it open because I work a lot with minority people. I work a lot with women and all of that. And people of color, women and all of that tend to always have the short end of the stick. And we need to change all of that, you know?
Agreed. And, you know, maybe this will change it. Maybe once they see that I've been on, they will change their mind. But for me, as I said, trying to diversify the Green Party, trying to outreach to communities that haven't been involved with the party in the past is very important to me. As you said, it's just part of, to me, part of representing everyone. But also, you know, for the Green Party, I don't think that there is, I mean, I think that is the biggest challenge that we face. So I was very grateful to have the opportunity, and, you know, we all have very busy schedules these days, but, you know, finding time to do this, I think is very important. I had an event just before, and I have one after, but at the same time, you know, this is more energizing than taking a rest for half an hour. So
I know what I mean.
Oh
no, and you know, and you did, and thank you for saying that too, because I get it. I get it that it's a busy time for you guys. There's no question about that. But at the same time, like forget about me. If somebody's reaching out to you or to any other candidate, and if you're not responding, or 1 week gone by, not, you know, week and a half and so on, people, and you're not responding, it's not encouraging, you know, to the person who is reaching out, you know. So you have to make sure, you know, you check your spam. You have to make sure that you don't pick and choose when you are responding, all of that. You know, I just had to make this point here, and they can prove me wrong, but it's not making sense. I mean, I cannot be a coincidence that nobody respond, just the male side of it, kind of thing. But anyway, we're going to leave that as that, but I just want to make sure I take the opportunity to mention that here.
Good for you.
So anyways, I mean, you are a smart, beautiful, intelligent woman. So, and politics is one of the most nastiest thing there is. I've done it. I've done it 3 times. Why politics?
Why politics? You know, you know, again, I'm loving these questions. You know, politics is not fun. I can tell you that it is. When you're running, particularly, it's very hard. The hours are very long. You sacrifice a lot. I have 2 children. I've been married for almost 25 years, and I don't get to spend much time with them. I'm lucky my children are older. My son actually turns 20 on Canada Day. And so, you know, it's, you have to know why you're doing it. And so it's a very good question. And for me, the things that we talked about, really, you know, we have major challenges that we are facing, whether it's because of the pandemic or because of the climate emergency, or because, you know, we have just these big holes in our social safety net. And because of my background in public policy and my international work, I thought this is something at this moment that I can contribute. If my children were younger, perhaps maybe I would be choosing to do something else. But at this moment in time, I feel like this is the best contribution that I can make, and these issues are very important to me. So I am living through all of the rest of it.
No,
you know, the long days, and at least you know, I mean, you know, I would say that there's some things that give you energy, and meeting new people, the team that is working with us, those are things that give us the energy, and really remembering how important these issues are that we're talking about. We're talking about life and death issues right now. The stakes are very high. So I keep that in mind as well.
For sure, for sure. Thank you for sharing that openly here. You know, you're in the race, and I mean, you're passionate just like all the other candidates, and the possibility exists for you to actually win it. You have equal opportunity just like anybody else.
Yes.
What will it mean to you to actually win that leadership race?
Well, I think that it will mean that I have a platform to be able to speak about the issues that are very important to the Green members. You know, the policies for the Green Party come from our members, not from the leader's office. And that's very important because, you know, we already have enough parties where all the power is concentrated just in the hands of a few people at the very top in the party. So I'm there as a representative, and winning means I get to be their voice, their ambassador, their champion, in terms of persuading Canadians about why they should support us and why they should get involved with the party. So that's very exciting. It would mean that I get to use all of the skills that I have been gathering throughout my entire life, whether internationally or here in Canada, in order to have the biggest impact on these issues that are so important. And I also am very aware, I mean, I am so much more than the fact that I'm a woman and that I'm Black, and I'm also Jewish. But I'm also aware that if I were to win, I would be the first woman of color. I would be the first Black person. I would be the first Jewish woman. There are many firsts that should already have been, done a long time ago. And so I know that's a very powerful symbol. Seeing people that look like you in positions of power really makes a difference, particularly to young people. It opens up possibilities that you didn't think existed. And so I know it would be very meaningful for many people.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, another question for you is not necessarily related to politics here. So speaking of that though, what do you do with your spirit? I know you probably don't have much spare time. I know. Of course, I should have known that. But apart from apart from you get into the race and decided to run and so on, what do you normally do? With your spare time, whether that be reading, music, whatever. What do you normally do? How do you spend it?
I can't remember what that is.
Yeah.
You're asking me to go back.
I know.
I do very much enjoy. Of course, as I said, I have children and they're a joy. They're teenagers, but we're very close family. My family is in Toronto. My husband's as well. We both love reading. We both love music. We both enjoyed the arts. It was very nice after all those years away, coming back to Toronto and being able to go and see live theater, for instance, a game. But that was so long ago.
No, and I totally get it. Personally, like you, people like us, we always somehow, for some reason, we're always engaging ourselves in different kind of things. We always seem to keep ourselves busy doing a whole bunch of different things that people probably wouldn't want to do, because you mentioned earlier that you was at a different event prior to you join us here. Then when you're done here, you have something else. I'm pretty much sure that when you're done, you have to check your emails and all of that. So it's never ending for sure. And just so we appreciate you in terms of really putting yourself out there to really doing something good. I think just by you running alone, I think you are making an impact, letting other people know that, these things are possible. People might not respond to you, they might not reach out to you, but they will be empowered, especially when they see you, kind of thing. So I get your point there. So even though, though you have the potential to win it, even if you don't, you're still making a huge impact, just so you know that. I just thought to take the time to mention that.
Every step of the way, every step of the way. Absolutely. Yes, and I do have people reach out to me and say what a difference it's made, and that means a lot. It's again, we should have reached these milestones many years ago, but I think because the very fact that we haven't makes it that much more significant and meaningful to people, and that's wonderful.
Of course. So let's say after you finish here. After you finish your next meeting and whatnot, you decide to step outside. We hardly do that these days if we don't have to, of course. But assuming you're doing that, you go to the short stop and whatnot. And when you're coming back, you find yourself a lottery ticket, like a scratch ticket. And when you look at a ticket, you realize that it's an actually winning ticket, $2 million. There's no name on it. There's no identification. There's nothing. There's no way for you to reach out to anybody. What will you do with that ticket?
With $2 million. Boy, you know what? Sometimes you feel like you've been asked every question during a race, but that is definitely a first. I mean, you said that there's no way to find the owner of the ticket.
There's no way to find the owner. You just happen to saw the ticket there, for curiosity, you pick it up and you realize it's a winning ticket. What do you do with that ticket?
Yeah, I would like to believe that in that case, I would give the ticket to find a way to use the money to do the most good for someone else. I wouldn't consider that to be, I'm hoping, who knows when temptation comes one's way, but I would like to believe that I would find a way to use the money for the most good. You know, there are many, many organizations that do incredible work that are always in need. I'm hoping that I would find one of those and support one of those. And there are many things that we should have in the community that don't exist at all. You know, I was just part of co-creating a fellowship for young Black Canadians who are interested in public policy. And it's an intensive one-year program for them that exposes them to public policy, takes them into a residential program at a university for a week to learn more about it, and hopefully prepare a new generation of public policy leaders within the community. And you know, that's a brand new program. We were lucky to get a grant from Heritage Canada, but you know, there are many, many ideas like that of things that could make a difference in the community that still need funding. And so hopefully I'd find a few of those and you know, make some people very excited.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, this race will be an interesting one because there are 10 people running for this leadership opening here. And I mean, at the end of the day, it is a competition as well, too. So, and based on everything you share here, people have a good idea as to who you are, your capabilities, and all of that. But what is it that set you apart from all the other 9 candidates? All of them will be asked the same question, by the way.
Yes. Well, first, I always say that I hope that the things that we share in common are greater than the things that separate us. You know, we are all Greens. We all have a commitment. I hope, I think, I believe we all have a commitment to the same core values. And so, you know, I try to say that because, you know, we try to do politics differently. And that means, you know, not always trying to find the things that are different and separate you and saying, I'm the best, I'm the only one. And so I always say that. What I believe at this moment could make me very well suited for this role is that I have many, many years of international experience. And the challenges that we're facing at this moment are very global. You know, no one is going to solve the climate emergency or a pandemic or, you know, our global economy without understanding how the world works and being able to talk with and feel comfortable in those kind of international and multilateral relationships. I'm also someone who's created a number of organizations from scratch. And so I'm very comfortable with innovation. And I believe this moment really is going to require the most innovative ideas and people who are very comfortable with thinking outside of the box. And then finally, you know, this moment that we're living through that was highlighted by George Floyd's death and the death of people also here in Canada is one that is going to require diverse perspectives. And we just do not have that in our very highest levels of politics, not at all. You know, every single, you know, all of our premiers and the leader and the prime minister, you know, they come from a very narrow racial and ethnic profile. And so having my perspective and having my lived experience in that context would be very, very important, I believe, as well. And so those are some of the things that I think as a package could help make me the right leader for this moment in time.
All right, thank you for your response. I'm almost done with you. I really appreciate you hanging in with us. I know you have
You're
to
welcome.
go. Obviously, we have people watching. You know, we have a lot of young people watching. You know, people of color and all of that. Are you able to share with us one of a challenge that you've had at some point in your life, and how did you handle that challenge?
Ooh, many challenges. You know, there are many. This is a challenge. And I ran in the last election, and that was also a challenge. I would just say that, you know, there are some things that are very hard to do, but they're also very worth doing, you know, and we have to find more people of color that are willing to put themselves out there and take that chance. It's not easy. And I can tell you that the door is not open. You know, it is not open, but you have to push it open anyways. And it's harder, it's more work for you, but it's really important to do it because your skills, your perspective, those things are valuable. And people need you, you know, especially at this moment in time. And so every day I face those kind of difficult moments. You know, there are lots of times that, you wish you could turn back. But I really believe that what I'm doing is important. I also have been lucky and maybe smart to find support, whether in my family or in our team, people who are there to encourage me, people who are there to guide me. And so helping, if you surround yourself with a strong support network as well, it helps you to overcome those challenges. That's definitely one of my biggest tips. If you have that foundation there, then you really can feel secure in pushing yourself. So
awesome, good advice. I just thought I take the opportunity to get your perspective so that people can learn, based on what you're saying there, because we have done, we are all done with the core question. But I have to emphasize or touch quickly, you're definitely right. The doors, it is not open at all, for sure. So we really have to hammer it really, really well, right? And you have to be strong. That's one reason I really admire people. I admire people like you, really, to actually, knowing that it wouldn't be an easy thing for you, but you know what, you believe in yourself, your self-worth, what you're capable in doing, and you are going after that door. So I hope that you keep that energy going, and hope, because I know you have the right key. You have the right key, that's for sure. So you keep going. But really good advice for people who are watching. So my last question for you, despite the fact that we all have challenges in life and all of that, what will be some of the things you would like to share with us that you're very much grateful for?
Well, I mentioned some of them. I'm very grateful for my family, my husband and my children, and my extended family, his family and my family. I'm very grateful for them, especially at this moment. I think it's not impossible, but it would be very difficult to be going through a leadership race without their support. I'm very grateful for the team that we have around us. These are volunteers, and they're people who are dedicating many hours every week to the campaign because they believe in the vision and they also believe in me. So I'm very, very grateful to them. And I'm very grateful just to have the opportunity to use whatever skills and talents and experience I've been able to collect over the years to try to make a positive difference and have a positive impact.
All right, thank you for sharing that. It's nice to have people like yourself to share those pieces, because though we have you here so that people can know who you are, particularly and specifically, for this leadership race, we also want to take some advantage to gain some knowledge from you too, because we know people are watching, and if you can inspire a few people here, will be like a bonus for us too. So we really appreciate that. So I want you to know that we appreciate you coming on here so much. It was such of a fun. We wish you nothing but the best. You keep that smile going, keep that energy going. And, if you were to win this race, we'd love to have you back on here. Yeah, find a way to track you down. Yeah, find a way to track you down. So don't you worry about that.
Entrepreneurial.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I do hope that you have success in attracting all of the other candidates. It's just so important to reach out beyond the usual and to make sure that we are, as you said, making our case, to the people that we're hoping to represent. So it's been a real pleasure, and thank you very much for the invitation.
Absolutely. So my dear fellow listeners, as we're approaching the end of tonight's program, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for tuning in to Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat. Please remember to join us again tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. On behalf of myself and our guest tonight, very, very talented, smart, strong woman, Annamie, we would like to, both of us would like to join together and wish you a great today and even a better tomorrow. We'll see you again soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.